I am making a Yubel deck profile for post Legacy of Destruction since I've managed to get the cards I need from it for the Yubel deck, and I really like how more consistent the cards make Yubel. And the only card that's missing now is, I believe, Phantom of Yubel, which I believe will release in either Battles of Legend Terminus or Terminal World or the this year's Megatons. But I just like how the new cards make Yubel more consistent and you're able to recur some of the bigger Yubel monsters. Now, starting off with the monsters, I play 2 copies of Gruesome Grave Squirmer. Gruesome Grave Squirmer has the effect that if you control a fiend, then you can special summon it from your hand. However, this does activate. And then you can destroy one Yubel monster you control or a monster that mentions Yubel. And then its other effect, I can't remember, but I knew it has a grave effect. Let's see. You can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a fiend monster 0 attack and defense from your hand or graveyard, except for Gruesome Grave Squirmer. And you can only use each effect of Gruesome Grave Squirmer once per turn. The main thing with this is that... Really? Really, Sky? The main thing with this card is that you can summon it, and then... you can summon it while you control a Yubel monster, and then destroy that Yubel monster. And to then upgrade it into the next stage of Yubel. And then you can banish from your graveyard, so if you have like a normal Yubel in hand, you can just summon that one. It just makes summoning Yubel just a little bit easier, as well as upgrading Yubel. Next, I play 3 copies of Samsara D. Lotus. Samsara D. Lotus lets you tribute it for cost to then special summon a Yubel or a monster that mentions Yubel from your deck. And then its other effect is during the end phase, if this card's in your graveyard, while you control Yubel, you can either return it to your hand or special summon it. And then if your opponent activates a monster effect while you control Yubel, then you contribute this card to then change that activated monster effect to your opponent destroys one Yubel monster your opponent controls. So then, I believe it's what it does real quick, blah 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 blah. Alright, so you control Yubel, you can enter your hand or special summon. Okay, yep. So the main thing I like is just because if your opponent activates a monster effect you don't like, such as Snake Eyes Ash, for example, you contribute the Samsara D. Lotus to change the Snake Eyes Ash effect to destroy your Yubel monster your opponent controls, which can just help you advance your things. Next, I play 3 copies of Dark Beckoning Beast. Dark Beckoning Beast has the effect that when it's normal or special... It is normal or special summon, right? No, when it's normal summoned, you can add one of the Sacred Beasts or a card that mentions it from your deck to your hand, except for Dark Beckoning Beast. And its other effect is just it gives you additional normal summon for a Dark Fiend with 0 attack and defense. Next, I play 3 copies of Spirit of Yubel. Spirit of Yubel can be special summoned from your hand when your opponent's monster declares an attack. And then when Spirit of Yubel is normal or special summoned once per turn, you can add or set a spell or trap that mentions Yubel, which I like that it says set because that gets around cards like Droll and Lockbird. And its last effect, besides this stereotypical Yubel effect of cannot be destroyed by battle, you take no battle damage from battles involving it, is that if it's destroyed, then you can special summon a Yubel from your hand, deck, or graveyard or banished. Speaking of Yubel, I play 3 copies of Yubel. Yubel cannot be destroyed in battle. You do not take any battle damage from battles involving Yubel. And then, if Yubel is an attack, if this attack position card is targeted for an attack by an opponent's monster, then you can activate Yubel's effect to then have your opponent take damage equal to their monster's attack. And then if Yubel is destroyed by a card effect, then you can special summon, or if Yubel is destroyed, then you can special summon a Yubel Terra Incarnate from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Speaking of Terra Incarnate, I play 2 copies of Yubel Terra Incarnate. Terror Incarnate cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by the effect of Yubel. And then you take no battle damage from battles involving it, can't be destroyed in battle. And then Terror Incarnate has the same attack reflection effect as Yubel as well. And however, it also has the effect that during the end phase, destroy all other monsters on the field. And then if Terror Incarnate is destroyed, you can special summon the Ultimate Nightmare from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then I play one copy of Yubel Terror Incarnate, the Ultimate Nightmare. The Ultimate Nightmare cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned with the effect of Yubel Terror Incarnate. It cannot be destroyed in battle. You take no battle damage from battles involving it. But instead of having the attack reflection effect, it has the effect that at the end of the damage step, if it battled a monster, you can destroy that monster, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack on the field. Whereas I believe it's on-field damage. It might be its original attack. Okay, no, I did it. I had it worded incorrectly. You inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack, and then you destroy it. And that's it for the Yubel monsters. For hand traps, I play 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler just lets you, during your opponent's main phase, lets you target one monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. However, it does have to be able to go to the graveyard, so if you're under Dimension Shifter, you cannot actually use Effect Veiler. One other thing you can do, because I'm not using it in my main deck at least, is you can replace Effect Veiler with Dimension Shifter if you really want to. Just because this deck is able to play a Shifter, as you can recur your banished resources. At least your banished Yubels. I don't know about the other things, but Yubel can be easily recurred from your being banished. Next, I also play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, just because I feel like it's still one of the better hand traps, as it can negate the activation of any card or effect. That includes the effect of adding a card from deck to hand, sending from deck to grave, or summoning from deck. And that is it for the monsters. For the spells, I play 1 copy of Terraforming. This lets you add a field spell from your deck to your hand. Then I play 2 copies of Dark World Accession. Dark World Accession is in this deck just because it lets you fusion summon a Fiend fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing materials from your field and graveyard. And that if you're summoning a Dark World fusion monster, you can also discard from your hand. But the main reason this is in here just because if your opponent's life points are low enough, you can just activate this to then fusion summon your copy of Yubel the Loving Defender Forever to finish off your opponent. And then I play 3 copies of Nightmare Pain. Nightmare Pain has the effect that the main thing that people don't like about it is that any of your opponent's monsters that can attack must attack a Yubel monster you control. And then your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving Yubel instead. So, one thing I like to do with this is, like, Yubel the Ultimate Nightmare. Have it attack a monster. And for this example, it'll be a Blue Eyes White Dragon. But if it'll attack the Blue Eyes at the end of the damage step, your opponent will take 3,000 damage because you would have taken 3,000. And then the Ultimate Nightmare's effect will activate to then destroy the Blue Eyes White Dragon and then inflict another 3,000 damage. So this is just one of the main cards that people don't like just because of it doing that. And its last effect is that once per turn you can destroy a dark monster from your face-up field or hand to then be able to add a card mentioning Yubel from your deck to your hand except for another copy of Nightmare Pain. Next, I play 3 copies of Opening of the Spirit Gates. Opening of the Spirit Gates has the effect that when it's activated, you add a monster that mentions the Sacred Beasts, or the Sacred Beasts themselves from your deck to your hand. And then once per turn, you can discard one card, special summon a Dark Fiend 0 attack, 0 defense monster from your graveyard. And then its last effect is if you control a level 10 or higher monster, you can add one continuous spell from your graveyard to your hand. And then next, I play 3 copies of Nightmare Throne. I only have 2 copies at the moment, but one of my friends has another copy of Nightmare Throne that he'll trade to me, which will be my 3rd. But Nightmare Throne is one of the most important cards for this deck, as when it's activated, you can take a monster that mentions Yubel from your deck to your hand, or you can take a monster that mentions Yubel from your deck and either add it to your hand or destroy it. And I forget the rest of its effects, how it's worded specifically. Okay, when it's activated, you take a Fiend monster from your deck with 0 attack and defense, and either add it to your hand or destroy it. Then once per turn, if it faces up Yubel monster or monsters you control leaves the field by card effect, you can add to your hand one Yubel monster from your deck, graveyard, or banished, whose original level is 1 higher or lower than one of those monsters. Then you can special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. The main thing I like about this is that this will make it so that if your ultimate nightmare is destroyed, then you can just summon back Terror Incarnate. Or Terror Incarnate is destroyed, then you can summon back your ultimate nightmare. And I believe there's also you can only activate one. And then the last part is you can only activate one Nightmare Throne per turn. But like I said, Nightmare Throne is just one of those cards that is... This card is both a starter and extender, as you can activate it to add Samsara Lotus to your hand. You can activate it to then destroy Grave Squirmer from deck, or you can destroy Spirit of Yubel to summon normal Yubel. You can even destroy Yubel and summon Terror Incarnate. I just like that this lets you add or destroy a Fiend with 0 attack and defense. And then next, I play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. This just lets you deal with the opponent's board. Just because it lets you discard a card to fusion summon using monsters from either side of the field. And neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. And for the that's it for the spells. For the traps, I only play 3 copies of Eternal Favorite. Eternal Favorite has the effect that once per turn, you can activate one of the 2 effects per turn, but you can only use one of those 2 effects per copy. Which I say per copy because you can actually use both effects of Eternal Favorite. You just have to have 2 copies of it. And you can only use each effect of Eternal Favorite once per turn. Where once per turn you special summon a Yubel monster from your grave or banished. And then its other effect lets you discard a card and send it to the graveyard for cost, to then be able to fusion summon from using monsters on either side of the field, including a Yubel monster. Usually I will just leave Eternal Favorite on the field to be able to just keep bringing back Spirit of Yubel for deck thinning. And it gives me another body that can't be destroyed in battle. Or what you can do if you have a second one, again, is you can use one, summon back a Spirit of Yubel to add a card if you don't have a hand. And then you can use a set Eternal Favorite to discard that card to then Super Poly your opponent's board away. One thing I should probably also mention, because I realized I didn't mention it, Nightmare Throne is harder to search for in this deck, as Nightmare Throne does not actually mention Yubel, as it mentions Yubel monsters. If you're familiar with the Aya Timaeus not being searchable in Dark Magician, this is basically that. But that is it for the main deck. I believe the main deck is currently 42-ish cards. It's either 42 or 41, I don't remember. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it is a 41 card deck, and you can make it 42 by adding a 3rd copy of Gruesome Grave Squirmer, which is more or less what I'm planning on doing. I'll either add another Gruesome Grave Squirmer, or I will add Mature Chronicle, which just has the effect that when you summon a monster that mentions Yubel, then it gets a counter, and then once you can remove any number of counters to do certain things. One lets you summon a banished Yubel monster, another lets you destroy one card of the field, But it's, I believe, if you get to remove 5 counters, then you get to add a super polymerization from deck to hand. But I'm probably not going to use Mature Chronicle. Anyway, moving on to the extra deck. I play 1 copy of SP Little Knight. One other card I want to play in this deck is Salamangreat Almirage, but I don't know what to take out. So for now, the only link in the deck is SP Little Knight. But SP Little Knight has the effect that when it's link summoned using a monster from the extra deck, you can target 1 card on the field or in the graveyard and banish it. Which I actually watched someone playing Yubel make this. After they shifted, they summoned this, and then they banish their shifter so they can use the other shifter in their hand, which I really think that's dumb. But its other effect is when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can activate SP Lone Knight's effect to target 1 monster you control and 1 card on the field, or 1 monster on the field, banish both until the end phase. And you can only use each effect of SP Lone Knight once per turn. A little bit more to the center. And then next, I play 3 copies, Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. I figured since this deck is playing, let's see, 6 level 10 monsters, it was going to be 8 because I was going to try playing Carnot the Eternal Machine, just because it's a level 10 you can summon from your hand just because you got hand trapped. But I figured since I'm playing 6 level 10s in the deck, I might as well play Gustav Max, as its effect lets you detach 1 material, inflict 2,000 damage to your opponent. Yubel at this point is a burn deck. Next, I play 1 copy of, I always forget how this card's name is pronounced, Varudris, the final bringer of the end times. This thing. And its effect is when your opponent activates a card or effect, detach material from this card, negate the activation. Then if you detach the material from this card, then destroy 1 card on the field. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks while it has material, destroy 1 card on the field. And if this card exceeds summoned cards, if this exceeds summoned card is destroyed, you can destroy 1 card on the field. The main thing I like about this is that it's essentially a negation that's also Unchained Abomination. As Unchained Abomination is a link 4 that just has the effect of once per turn. If a card on the field is destroyed except by Unchained Abomination's effect, destroy it. And then if a card is destroyed by battle, destroy 1 card on the field. During the end phase, destroy 1 card. And then I also play 1 copy of Sky Palace Gungari Day. Gungari Day has the effect where you can detach material, target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage. And I believe Gungari Day cannot attack the turn this effect is used. Yeah. Then I play 2 copies of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe. Libe just lets you exceed summon it by using any, let's see, rank 10 machine exceeds monster, where you transfer materials to this card. But it has the effect where it gets it can attack a number of monsters, or it can attack opponent's monsters equal to the number of material it has plus 1, and then you can detach 1 material from it, so that it gains 2,000 attack. And then, yeah, that's it. Next, to finish off the Exceeds monsters, I also play 1 copy of Super Dimensional Robot Galaxy Destroyer. Galaxy Destroyer just has the effect where you detach material, destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls, and neither player can activate spells or traps in response to this card's activation. The other thing I like about it is that it's a 5,000 body for no reason. Next, for Fusion Monsters, I play 2 copies of Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. If you don't want to play 2, then you can easily just take out 1 Garura for King of the Swamp. But Garura just has the effect that if it's into the graveyard, you get a draw card. And then, if it deals battle damage, any damage it inflicts is doubled. But it's mainly just in here for the effect that it just requires 2 monsters with the same type and attribute. Same type and attribute, but different names. And if I remember correctly, King of the Swamp just requires 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. So like with Lightsworn, you could use a Beast Warrior with a Fairy or a Spellcaster. As long as it's 2 different types but light, you can do it. Next, I also play 1 copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon just has the effect that when it's fusion summoned, you can target 1 special summon monster on the field and increase its attack by that monster's attack. And then you increase the attack by that until the end of the turn. And then if this fusion summoned card is destroyed, then you can activate its effect to destroy all special summon monsters your opponent controls. And lastly, once per turn, it can target 1 level 5 or higher effect monster in your opponent's field or grave, and then replace this effect with that monster's effect until the end of the turn. Or that monster's effects. And lastly, I play 3 copies of Yubel, the Loving Defender Forever. Loving Defender Forever has the effect that when it's fusion summoned, it inflicts 500 damage for each material it had, which it just requires one Yubel monster plus 1 or more effect monsters. And that's where the Dark World Accession comes into play, as you can just banish a Yubel monster and as many of your effect monsters in your graveyard as you want. And as long as you use at least 16, then that would be 8. No, yeah, I was right. That would be at least 8,000 damage. Or no, at least. It is 8,000. Right? Yeah. And its last effect is, besides it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and your opponent, you don't take any battle damage from battles involving it, is at the end of the damage step, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to a monster's attack, and then you banish it. Or I think this is the one where you banish and then you inflict damage. Let's see, inflict damage to that opponent's monster's attack, and if you do, banish that monster. So yeah, Loving Defender is able to swing into things, inflict damage to that monster's attack, and then you can banish it. But that is it for my Yubel deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any ideas for decks I'd like to see be made in the future, or decks I'd like to see face each other, feel free to comment down below. I always read the comments, and thank you for watching.